Folks, hello and welcome to week 7. It's a big week as we finish up our term projects, thinking back to everything that we have learned in weeks 1 through 6 and how we have put that all together in week 2 in your project proposal and then during week 5 in your rough draft. Those two submissions in the context of the first 6 weeks of the course and all the material that we have discussed. We come to week 7 and we are going to submit the final product here. Just to note, this week there is nothing new in zyBooks and there is no discussion post. The week is totally devoted to allowing you to again reflect on what you've done through the first 6 weeks of the course, what you did during week 2 in your proposal, and then what you did in week 5 for your rough draft to put this all together and submit a fine product to close out the project. What I thought I would do in sort of as a follow-on to the feedback that I provided during week 2 in your proposal and during week 5 in your rough draft is to just go through the project template and again reinforce some of the key themes that I provided in the feedback so that everybody, again, we're just really kind of following the train here, again, especially since the draft in week 5 and the things that, are important to, put some additional attention towards to make sure that these final submissions are, the products that everybody wants to submit. And so one more time, let me just take a couple minutes here to go through this project template, and then you all can be on your way. So this is in the module 7 folder. You will find a link to this. So this will be the front page. We don't need to say much about that. You can simply fill in all the requested material here. So part 1, the context, and everybody understands that you chose one of 3 scenarios for your project. And within the statement of those scenarios, there were some, I think we were kind of led to some questions that the scenarios were kind of driving towards that we want to use as the basis for this project. And I think, certainly at least in a handful of the rough drafts that were submitted during week 5, I reinforced to you all that, when you start doing a project like this, there is absolutely nothing that's more important than understanding the question or the questions that you are trying to address. And if that is not clear up front, it's easy to get off track and it's easy to start putting all sorts of information in here that does nothing more than distract the reader, in this case me, the reader and the grader, from what it is you're trying to accomplish here. So before you start putting together your final product here, what I think you should do is just sit down and re-clarify in your mind precisely what the question or questions are that you are trying to address in your product here. And if you are clear in that regard, these products will be very good because everything will, the data that you have, the analytical techniques that you have used, your own critical thought and informed decision making will make these really fantastic products. So as we go up here and we look at part 1 of the context, certainly you want to address the scenario. Why it's important. Certainly, if you have any personal connection to the scenario, obviously that would be great to include sort of in an overview here. You do not need to state the questions per se in part 1, but you should certainly allude to what it is you're trying to get after, because it does say here how math, and I will go a bit further here and say, maybe some of the data analysis techniques that you've learned sort of in a statistics framework, what those tools are that we should expect to see as you start getting deeper into the project submittal. So let me say one more time here, 2 things that we absolutely want to see here. some overview of the scenario and a general discussion of the questions that you are trying to address, and then the tools that we should expect to see through, through the completion of the project. So then we get down here to part two. Again, thinking back to what we've reinforced here about the scenario and the questions that you're trying to answer here, I wouldn't at all be opposed to seeing you write very discrete sentences saying, or with the questions that you are trying to answer in your research here. And I will go as far as saying, this is really based on the fact that you're digging through a bunch of data and, pulling together analytical techniques to analyze it. This is really a research project at its heart. And so being very clear again about the questions is to everybody's benefit. And then let's see, discuss how math could be used to analyze your problem and propose a solution. So if we compare that with part three, what we at least should be seeing in part two, again, the questions, some of the analysis to support the answers would be great. The, again, whatever data you are using here to, to support your decision making and your the answers to your question, we should get some sort of overview of that data. That would be great. As it notes in the next section for part three, you are not obligated to summarize any sort of data that you have used, but it would be very nice. Just make sure that it is presented in APA format and it is referenced accordingly. And so that is, again, kind of at the heart of what we would expect to see here in part two. Part three, you will analyze relevant data associated with your chosen scenario. So again, if you present it in sort of a summary manner in part two, that would lead very nicely into part three. And again, this idea of, the data toolkit, again, once you decide what the key data that you are able to find and how that, how you've used that to address the questions from the scenario and the tools that you have used, this is obviously the place where we want to see, really for you to display sort of the academic success or the proficiency that you have gained with those tools in this context and with the data that you have used. So that is really, and again, how you are driving the answers to your research questions, if we really want to go there. And again, informed decisions or informed results based on what you have been able to do with the data and how you have been able to analyze it and interpret it. That's really kind of the big rock here for the entire project. Let's see. Just make sure that anything that you have used, any data that you have used, that it is referenced here, and anything that you reference in your in the references section of your paper should be cited in the context or in the body of the paper. And so there was a lot of instances where in week 5 that folks were submitting a list of references, but it wasn't referenced in any of the written work above. So we certainly want to make sure that that's done and done in accordance with the APA manual, whether it's, simply, to point out data that you were able to obtain, or, something that somebody said about, this scenario as a whole. Those are the sorts of things that we would like to see. And so again, let me just take one more second here just to kind of play this back in short order. The cover page, I think everybody can get the grasp of that just by the blocks that you need to fill out. Again, making sure in part 1 here that we understand the context of the scenario, that you kind of set up the entire product here with some overview. And one more time, just some idea to the reader what it is that you are trying to get at here, and the math and the statistics that you are going to use to address this based on the data that you have. And that will be a great table setter for the project. Again, part two, we want to be very, very descriptive at this point about the questions that you are going to answer. And again, if you want to enumerate those, if there's only one question, that's fine. If there's one or two, you can state them. And again, how you are going to get after this. And again, if you have data that you need to summarize, and if you want to talk about analytical tools that you're going to use and how they apply to the data, this would be a great place to do that. And then in part three, this is really where you're going to get after it with your analysis, and then how you have interpreted your results to influence the way that you are going to respond to the questions that you have assigned to your scenario. And that is really, that's really at the heart of how research is done, and making sure that there's absolutely a clear connection between, in this case, problem statements, data, analytical approaches, and then responses to those questions. And if you can learn that skill as an undergraduate student, you're going to be in really great shape as you go on and do any more, whether it be academic or applied research. And then certainly if you decide to go on to any sort of graduate school, you'll be well served. And let me just say, certainly within any of your academic work where you have to do, this sort of work, you'll be in great shape if you can demonstrate that here in Math 126. So I'm looking forward to a great week. Again, I've seen a lot of good work in weeks 2 and week five, and I'm optimistic that everybody is in good shape here. Again, I just want to say it for the final time. I can't overemphasize the importance of being absolutely clear in your mind about the 1 or 2 or 3 questions you are trying to answer here. And at the end of your writing here, and after you get this put together, I hope that you'll sit down and read through it a couple times and make sure that everything that you have done in this project, relates back to the scenario and the problems that you are trying to address. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing the final products. And again, one more time, I've seen a lot of good work, and I'm optimistic that we're in good shape. And I wish you all the best this week. And one more time, nothing in Zybooks, no discussion posts. It's really just your time to think about everything that you've done in the course and everything that you have done in this project in conjunction with those things that we've learned, and being able to put together a great final product. So I'll hop off the stage at that point and wish you all the best, and I'll look forward to seeing your projects later this week. Take care and all the best.